Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Amy Canavan and Kevin Graham, who has taken over from Colin Watt in the post-game analysis. Kevin, you didn't get a chance to speak before or at half-time. Sum it up. Is that Ange ball? Is that what Dan Orowitz warned us about?
Oh, right away. What I'm going to say is this Ange ball, I'm not into the term anymore because it makes it sound like we're watching some freak show in a circus somewhere, where, like when you go to see a 15-foot woman or something like that. All we're seeing is a modern style of play, which has not been seen in Scotland before because we're quite backwards and we give caps to guys like Scott McKenna and stuff like that. There's other teams all over Europe play this style of football. Atalanta, other teams. So Ange ball makes it sound a bit freaky for me. I enjoyed that the night. I would rather go out there and have a narrow defeat and actually give it a go. And we gave it a go the night. Look, the guys, the boys who weren't up to the task, we've already named them in previous programmes this week. The ones that we thought might have let us down when the injuries and all of that started taking hold of us. But we made Betis sweat. We made them have to go up through the gears tonight. There's been so many times over the last couple of years where we've just not turned up away games in Europe. Never made the team work. Betis had to go through the gears tonight, and they had to work up a sweat to beat us. There's a question about the mentality of the team. We can't lose 2 goals in 2 minutes the way that we did. 2-0 up, maybe the game. I don't think there's a question with the tactics. I think it's more a question of the mentality of the players that we've got there. And I enjoyed that tonight. I think there's so many positives. I think Rogic was great. I thought Turnbull was great. Adam Montgomery, he's got a quietness, a quiet coolness about him. It reminds me a bit of Callum McGregor when Callum McGregor first broke into the team. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He just knows what he's meant to be doing.
Quietly effective.
And that's really, really good. Look, Ralston had a great last 15 minutes there. The previous 75 minutes is probably one of the reasons why there's still a lot of doubts about him. I think there was more positives than negatives in that. I mean, we were talking yesterday, Paul, when we actually thought that we were like, we could have been on for an offie doing the night. We never got an offie doing. There's still work to be done, but overall, I'm quite happy tonight. I'm actually quite happy, but there's obvious deficiencies in that side, and they need sorted, but they're not going to be sorted in 8 weeks, 6 weeks, or one transfer window. They're not going to be sorted. At not one point did I think we didn't deserve to be on that part tonight. No. And you look at the players that were missing, and you go, I need to take that as a positive. I need to take that away as a massive, massive positive.
Well, see the thing coming into the post-match, Kevin, often you're so disappointed with the performance, or we have been over the last year, many, many times, and it's frustrating, and you become critical. I don't mean you specifically, but as a panel, you become very critical. I'm not feeling like that tonight. And that's despite the fact that we were 2-0 up. That's despite the defensive frailties. But there's other reasons around me not feeling like that tonight. Now, in a nutshell, I think Alan Robertson says it well. Great attack and play, but naive defensively. Yeah, very naive. But there's a point at that game where you think to yourself, yeah, we're maybe losing it a wee bit at 3-2. We've not made any changes at half-time. Well, what changes can he make? That's the biggest frustration. So I can't place that on the shoulders of Ange Postecoglou. He's looking at a bench there, and he simply didn't have the personnel to make there wasn't a game changer sitting on that bench, was there? No. The only change he could make, he's made it because he's brought McCarthy on for Sorrell. And by the way, he might have made that change at half-time if I'm going to be ultra critical of the gaffer. I'd say maybe he could have made that change at half-time. But I'm not going to focus on that because there was a lot to be positive about. Now, before I come to yourself, Amy, Kevin brought up Tony Ralston. No, it wasn't his best game tonight. He's spot on. But what I don't like seeing after 65, 70 minutes is people saying that's why he's not good enough for this level. And we've seen a lot of that. And he seems to be on a very short leash with quite a lot of Celtic fans and quite a lot of the ACSOM contributors in our WhatsApp group. I've got that kind of feeling as soon as he's not having a great game. But he showed, like Kevin says, in the dying embers of that game, he showed why he's in the team. And he's shown why, to be honest with you, it's a miraculous kind of turnaround in his career. We give massive plaudits to players who go away, and I'm not comparing them, go away and prove us wrong. I think Ralston's proved a lot of people wrong this season. And although that wasn't his best performance tonight, Amy, I think we're too quick to jump on Tony Ralston,
Absolutely. He's still carrying that whipping boy sort of label, and he will remain the whipping boy for a section of the support. By all means, it wasn't his greatest game tonight, but I think that probably shows the standards that he's set in recent weeks. He gave 100%, and he will always give 100%. He was given 100% right up to that death. I think if you're being totally critical as well, as much as we're praising Jota going forward, I think he needs to be a little bit wiser defensively. I don't think he came and gave Tony Ralston a lot of support. You look at I'm trying to remember now, I think it's the third goal. He's relying on Sorrow, for the cover. There's that Sorrow doesn't get out tight enough. Perhaps that's because I think others have said it in our group chat that, he's on a booking, he's feeling a bit, no matter what, to be honest. For me, he needs to be a little bit tighter, but Ralston deserves cover there. That's where Betis were getting all the joy. So you double up. If it's anybody else, you're more than happy to double up. So why is Ralston expected to take it all in his stride and take it all by himself? So for me, going forward, especially in Europe, Jota is as influential as he is going forward. He needs to do the dirty work coming back as well. That's something that, James Forrest had to adapt over the years. And it's probably something that we're missing. Again, James Forrest, another one who's always the whipping boy, but he does always get back and does his defensive work. He's always done that. So that's something going forward that Jota will need to do. But then you're thinking again, maybe if Cal Mack was playing, he'd have saw that and he'd have been that cover for Ralston, or if there was somebody else, but Sorrow wasn't really thinking quick enough either. So yeah, Ralston's going to get a lot of the blame from a lot of the support, certainly not from myself. It's not his greatest game, but he does need a lot more cover, and that's not anything on his abilities, but one man cannot be expected to be facing all of that. Juranovic, wasn't really troubled down the left, because that's not where Betis were going. So you've got to follow where the positive play for the opposition was. It was down Ralston's side. That's just the way that it goes. And if it would be the exact same with Juranovic, we'd be expecting Sorrow to be there, or we'd be expecting trackers back from Montgomery, which I believe he done as well. I know that's more in his play, but I think as much as you're going to criticise Ralston, then you've got to share the blame. I don't like the word blame, but it is a team effort. I know it's that cliche, but he needed more cover tonight, and his teammates weren't really there to support him.
Good point, an excellent point, in fact. Now, Kevin, one thing I've got noted here is margins, and particularly in Europe. Because it's great when you're winning 6-0 domestically. That's tremendous. And sometimes your defensive frailties aren't shown up because your possession in the final third is vast. Therefore, you get away even if there has been any kind of slackness. So that's one thing. But you come up against a real quality side in Europe like we did tonight. And we spoke yesterday about Celtic's aspirations in Europe and the fact that it's frustrating as a fan that we can't go toe-to-toe even with, the litany of clubs that have put us out of the Champions League in the last 6 years or so, Kev. They're the kind of clubs that we would expect to be competing with, Cluj, AEK Athens, Malmo, Ferencváros. We would expect to be competing against those clubs. You come up against a Leverkusen or a Real Betis and you think to yourself, well, if we go away from home and they beat us, although it's expected, you want to put in a good account of yourself. Now, fine margins. Now, I know Joe Hart made 5 saves that I counted tonight, 5 saves. Some of them were pivotal. But we've hit the post with Tommy Rogic. Excellent effort. We've scored a goal that was chopped off. And, we've come away from that and we've lost in the odd golden 7. So, it's fine margins, Kev. What do we do to shorten the margins? Is it all about just a wee bit more discipline in terms of the defensive play, not just by the defenders? I mean, Amy's already picked up on Jota's indiscipline defensively. We've already spoken about Sorrow's indiscipline. Is it just a wee bit of discipline? Is it fine-tuning, or is that margin just too far a bridge to gap?
Dermot Desmond spends £100 million, and that's not going to happen, But what we need to do is develop better players develop with a better mentality. as I says right at the start, I think the team have bought into the style Postecoglou wants to play. But have they got the mentality? Have they got the ability to do that? Tonight, Sorrow was all over the shop after the booting. He was a man down after the booting, caused 2 goals. Amy's already spoke about the third goal where Jota should have covered, but you look at Sorrow, what's he doing with his hands behind his back? No going to actually cover the guy, eh? It's horrendous. And the first goal that we lost as well, he's powder puff on the edge of the box as well when the header drops and allowed to go through. So we spoke yesterday, Paul, about the difference in quality between Callum McGregor and Sorrow. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do now, as you've got Callum McGregor, we need to find somebody that's in the middle between Callum McGregor and Sorrow to come into that side. Is that James McCarthy? It's extremely obvious that James McCarthy's not fit enough to play 90 minutes. So that's why he's coming on when he's coming on. Mm-hmm. Because if we had a strong enough bench, I'm sure Sorrow would have been hooked after 20 minutes tonight. If we had somebody on the bench to come on to actually change that game. We only made 1 sub tonight, and I think that says everything. Yeah. What we need to do is develop these young laddies. You look at Montgomery, you've got to give Postecoglou time. We've got to win away eventually. We have got to win away eventually, and it's the mentality of this team. But you look at the way Postecoglou handles himself in the press, in front of everybody, and I picture him in the dressing room trying to get the mentality of these players. And all it's going to take is one result. All it's going to take is one result, and this team's going to click. But where we want to be in Europe, which is winning this group or finishing second in the group, we are far away from that. But I'm really pleased tonight that we looked like we should have been on that park with a Fairbrave squad. And
yes.
We did make mistakes, and that's no saying that. But at no one point did I ever think we were going to get overrun. No.
I'm going to ask you then, Kev, that being the case, you bring back Chris Jullien, you bring back Callum McGregor, you bring back Kyogo and Abada, and your first choice left back in Taylor. You bring these players back, James Forrest. There's half a dozen players, right, who may be first picks, certainly first team players. You bring them back. How much does that improve your side, that threadbare side that we seen this evening? And how much of a difference does that make? Does that then make you more confident that, you know what, once these players come back, we might be able to go for second place? Or is it a case, Kevin, that we're never going to have that luxury?
You want to have that luxury. You really do want to have that luxury. And you've got to think that when we play in the next couple of games, when we go to the double header against Ferencváros, which for me was always the 2 pivotal games to ensure European football after Christmas, you've got to think some of these key players will be back. You've got to think Forrest will be back, McGregor will be back. You've got to hope that Giakoumakis will actually be up to speed by that point. Kyogo's going to be back as well. And you've just got to hope in the games where you're expected to win, then these guys do make a difference. Longer term, we're going to need better players and develop better players all over the shop. We know that. But in the short term, we should be looking to actually get 4 points out of 6 against Ferencváros. And the confidence we can take from the night and the learning things we can take from tonight, and whatever happens against Leverkusen in a couple of weeks, if we give another great performance against Leverkusen, then we can go into the Ferencváros double header actually feeling good about ourselves, especially with us getting the players back.
Well, I mentioned 6 players who were out tonight. You could add on top of that, one of them not injured, of course, Abada for religious reasons, Giakoumakis, Beaton, Johnson, Dembele. There's 10 players, Amy, who were out of tonight's game. When they do come back, how confident are you that we've got a squad that will get us up to January at least, because it still needs strengthened, and tonight showed that? I mean, it's a kind of freaky occurrence when you've got 10 first-team players that are unavailable for selection. So to go out there, put a good account of yourself, as Kevin says, you've not embarrassed yourself. It's 4-3, and you know some of those goals can go down to individual errors. How confident that we are at a stage where, you know what, we might be able to compete in this group as these players start filtering back into the first team squad?
God knows what it'll be like, and when it'll be, you know, that Ange Postecoglou have a full strength squad. They said that just yesterday, it's just been a constant state of flux since he's took over. You know, he's never had more than, I think he's always had like 3 or 4, if not more, players out. And they're influential players. To be honest, you mentioned one there. I'd have had Near Beaton at centre defensive mid ahead of Sorrow tonight. It could be a bold move, but I think anybody right now is better than Sorrow.
I think Beaton's injured, but then I also think if he was available, he would have been missing for religious reasons as well.
Yeah, you're right, Kev, actually. That's a good shout. But then you think about that, so then if Cal Mack's still, again, I think he has to be an option now, even ahead of Sorrow, and who maybe would have really thought that. Can we see it through till January? Well, we're just going to simply have to. Strength and depth is certainly needed in January. Tonight's just another glaring example for Ange to give to the board that he needs and deserves the backing in January, because this isn't a squad that you can see you through till the end of the season. It's certainly not a squad that can certainly not see you through to the latter stages of Europe, and it'll be, we all said it was going to be a minor miracle tonight, to be honest. If Celtic got a result tonight, it's certainly a positive result and a win. If you look at that, if any of us would have took 4-3, to be honest. I think if before the game, I think a lot of us would have took 4-3. I know, Paul, you asked us for our predictions, and Colin and I were both hoping for a point, but 4-3, you think, wow, we've maybe gave a decent account of ourselves. I appreciate Kev's positivity and I like it, but I don't know. I find it really hard. This is when my pessimism comes through. When you're 2-0 up, you should be winning games, and even more so when you're scoring 3 goals away from home, you should really be winning games. I think, as you said, Paul, a lot of those goals are actually quite avoidable. They're schoolboy errors, they're individual errors. I think perhaps maybe if we had a stronger backline, perhaps a greater partnership, a stronger understanding between Carter Vickers and Starfelt. I think at half-time maybe we said it was a really decent understanding, but I think that was really probably a little bit too premature. I think there was a moment in the second half, Carter Vickers were going for the header, Starfelt was coming across, and you just think, just communicate, guys. So it's little things like that you hope over time will come to play and come into force. So you need to try and take the positives, but if you take that game in isolation, in those opening 25 minutes, Real Betis were all over the shop. We really should have had that game dead and buried. Jota has that chance. There was a few more that I just thought that we could have went at it, but look, as Kev says, you've got to try and take the positives. We have to try and take the positives here. But I think right now you can still be a little bit ruin it, because we were in a fantastic position and ultimately we let it slip. Yeah,
we did. We threw away a 2-goal lead. The point of the central defensive partnership, Kevin, it's been a bone of contention all season. But if you think of Starfelt in the first instance, right? So when he's come in, he's played alongside Beaton. It's then switched to Stephen Welsh, and he's now trying to forge a third partnership, this time with Carter Vickers. It's only the second time these guys have played together. So yeah, there was that moment, and I felt a bit daft having said that they were building a good relationship, where 5 minutes later, it's as if they'd never met each other in the box. Kevin, when it comes to, let's say, the latter part of this year, and those relationships have built gradually over time, that kind of thing there is, it's not a new signing, but once that understanding happens, and they're getting an understanding with Joe Hart behind them as well, I think we're going to see a completely different beast here. When I look at Jota, he played very well in the first half of his debut, and I think that actually he was involved throughout the game tonight. When he's firing on all cylinders, and you've got Abada firing on all cylinders on the right-hand side, and Kyogo through the middle, then you start to see Ange's team taking shape. But regardless of all that, he's looking at a bench there, and it's completely underwhelming. Now, there's 2 reasons for that. I think there's a bit of kind of short-termism in that we didn't strengthen the squad as much as we should have done. But also, it then veers into structural territory, because when you put a youngster on that bench, if they're on the bench, that means they've got to be able to play. No matter, they've got to be ready, they've got to be fit enough, and they've got to be capable enough to actually play in that game, because there might be a moment in that match where you've got to throw them on. But what I've noted here is we don't have a game changer. So what I mean by structural, this is a deeper issue. We don't have a striker that's coming through the ranks that can change a game, that's on that bench, a prolific goal scorer. We don't have it. And that concerns me. When was the last time we had a player that we could call upon from the youth academy that, he's on that bench and this is your big chance. We know that the players we're providing to the first team are good enough. Look at Montgomery, for example. He's come in. And for me, he never put a foot wrong tonight. A couple of stray passes. I've probably just contradicted myself. But that was very, very minimal in terms of his overall performance. He's put in 90 minutes. It's his second start in a Celtic jersey. He doesn't look out of place. Why can't we do that? Why can't we identify someone up front, an offensive style player who can sit on that bench for Celtic tonight? And with 10 minutes to go, when Ajeti is ultimately tiring, which he did, we're able to throw him on. It's a huge frustration to me.
That's a huge frustration. I think, again, tonight, when you looked at the bench, it's a huge frustration at the lack of planning and foresight that this football club has at a European level. I mean, we've spoken about it before, and it's something Brown Warrior says in the comments that Maloney was probably the last game changer that's actually came through the academy. You could probably argue with that, but he's got a point. Maloney could change a game, but tonight we had nothing on the bench whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. And when you've got 5 attacking players, I mean, you look at the game against Ross County on Saturday, I mean, we had no attackers on the bench whatsoever. There was nobody there to change the bench whatsoever. And we'll have to have a look at this. And you have a look, Shaw wasn't even considered to come on tonight. And you're going, our midfield was getting overrun. And you can blame Starfelt, you can have a look at Cameron Vickers, but defensively as a shape, we were overrun in the midfield and we gave up the wide areas. There was no tracking back in the wide areas. And that's very difficult for the 2 centre-halves to actually handle because they're getting constantly overrun. I think the third goal was it, the one that Sorrell put his hands behind his back. Cameron Vickers and Starfelt were having a wee bit of an argument with that because I think Cameron Vickers thought Starfelt should have went with the guy. I thought it was a great... I would rather have seen the ball stoked further out than it getting into the box. It is a frustration, Paul, and I'm sure Postecoglou is going to be frustrated as well. What's great about football is we've got another game on Sunday to try and get this away monkey off our back. And it's good to move on. Postecoglou is eventually... I mean, now the transfer window is done. This is really the start of the Postecoglou era because he's no dealing with any major legacy issues. He's done as much as he can, and now everything's basically on him going forward. And I think tonight, the guys that we expected to let us down, but there was a lot more positives came out of it, for me anyway. But I understand why everybody's saying 2-0 up. That's disappointing, with 2-0 up, getting beat 4-3. But we were up against a quality side here. And for us not to give up in that last 15 minutes, dragged forward by a right back, Anthony Ralston, an academy player who had a horrendous 75 minutes before that, then you've got to say there is heart in that squad. We just need a different mentality. But that's going to come down to man management and development the longer Postecoglou has them. Hopefully.
You mentioned there about Carter Vickers and Starfelt becoming frustrated with each other. In 2 or 3 months' time, this is what I'm saying, Kevin, that will be natural. One of them will make the run, the other one will understand that he's making the run because they'll build that relationship. So we're at an embryonic stage of Ange Postecoglou's team here.
What you've got to remember as well, Carter Vickers hasn't played much football. I think the element that Amy's talking about, I think that's tiredness. That's just mental tiredness and physical tiredness coming in. And also with Jota, he hasn't played a lot of football either. So tracking back on that Betis side, he has to improve it, but I'm putting a lot of it down to fitness tonight. I'm maybe giving him a free pass tonight because of his lack of fitness. But I thought he looked better on the right-hand side than what he did on the left.
Interesting, because he reckons himself that left is his best position. We've got to talk about Turnbull and Roger, Camey, because there's a lot of comments at the beginning of the game around the fact that they shouldn't be playing in the same team, for example. That was quite a comment that came through quite a few times. Both players finished the game. What was your take on it? There's a lot of comments coming through, very positive comments about Tommy Rogic. He's completely transformed his style of play. I mean, he used to, I always thought he played on the periphery, the edges of the game, and he would flit in and out. And if the ball was lost, you would never expect him to have that defensive discipline to win it back. He seems to be a completely different player. Turnbull as well, he gets a lot of flack. People don't think that the defensive side of the game is one of his strengths, Amy. But overall, Turnbull and Rogic, how do you think they performed tonight?
I thought Rogic in particular was outstanding. I really did. I think he's one of the star players that Celtic have to look at tonight. I think for starters, for him to last 90 minutes, I agree. That's nearly unheard of in recent times. And it wasn't even, I think there was a few at halftime. I've seen a few on Twitter. I think people were saying, "Oh, that's tiring already." Well, he certainly didn't show it in the second half. He didn't become a passenger late on. He was still, interfering and causing a nuisance for himself. It was a delightful ball in. Obviously, Ajeti was offside, but it was a terrific little ball in for Ajeti's header that got disallowed late on. I was really, really impressed by Tom Rogic tonight. David Turnbull, I agree that I think that was probably on show quite a lot tonight. His lack of defensive abilities, he doesn't really like to track back. Neither does Rogic by that matter, but David Turnbull is a little bit quicker. I think I'm quicker than Tom Rogic, but he doesn't get back an awful lot, and I think that probably showed as well. And left a lot for McCarthy when it was McCarthy. He kind of had to do all that by himself there, but they were both really impressive tonight. Like I say, Rogic I think more so, but just because I'm not praising David Turnbull as much. Somebody said that he does all that quiet work. I don't know if that was Kev saying about Montgomery, that he does it kind of behind the spotlight. But I thought if anyone was going to create anything tonight, it was going to be Jota or Rogic. They were linking up, and everything was just sort of clicking there. So it's a massive performance in him, probably one of his biggest away in Europe in a long time. And then for David Turnbull as well, because he's been we've criticised him, and quite rightly, to be honest, that he's not really turned up in the big games because we expect it from him, because we expect him to be a big game player. It wasn't an outstanding performance tonight, but it was not. It was nothing to be disappointed by. And considering in the last few games we've all kind of been like, David Turnbull's just not really turning up here. He certainly turned up tonight, and they're the positives that Kevin obviously drawing on that we need to try and take from. But for the both of them as well to last 90 minutes. Probably more through necessity than anything else. They were probably forced to, because you look at that bench and who's coming on. But they certainly gave it their all. And you look at the attacking options that Celtic had on the park tonight, probably compared to Betis, and they're managing to bring on all these subs, like Avrelo. It's absolutely exceptional that they can bring him on. So, look, it was a decent effort, and I was quite impressed by Rogic tonight.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to the frustration that Ange must feel. He's looking at that bench. There's no game changers. There's no influencers, let's say, who are going to come on and influence the game, contribute to the game. Yet we've loaned out quite a few players. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have, but it must be a frustration that we've got a striker in Griffiths who's at Dundee who should have been a contributor who wasn't. We've got a player in Cham who should have been a contributor, but he was obviously such a bad influence that we tore up his contract. And because we don't have two of these experienced players, we've got a couple of guys on the bench, 18-year-old, never had kicked, who's played 2 games for Celtic, or 2 guys that were brought in from Sheffield Wednesday who have never played for Celtic. And that must be a frustration, Kevin, because these were legacy issues that Ange Postecoglou inherited. Hopefully by the end of the January transfer window, there'll be fewer of them. Eddie McCallum comes in. Ralston didn't have a horrible 75 minutes, Tosh. And when I hear the name Tosh, Kev, if you grew a moustache, you would look a wee bit like Tosh from the Bill. Now, that's before Amy's time, but Eddie's called you Tosh there. We didn't have a horrible 75 minutes. I think I was watching him. He was becoming frustrated, Ralston. He was becoming frustrated. There was a couple of moments where he's given a wee bit of afters to a couple of their players. Once on the touchline, he's getting frustrated with the referee. He's giving the back chat to the ref. I think within himself, he knew he wasn't having a great performance. But one thing about Ralston, he was completely dedicated. He had the heart to continue. He won 2 corners near the end of the game, and he obviously scored the 3rd goal to, drag us back into it. So, once we come up to Livingston, it's a nice segue to bring us up to the next game. We're playing Livingston away from home. What changes between tonight's lineup and Sunday's lineup, Kevin Graham?
I think just to go back to the Rogic point, is I was watching it on a stream. It was CBS America, and the American commentator was absolutely raving about Rogic. absolutely raving about him, about his feet and how he used to play futsal, and just to bring that back. Sunday's we're going to a plastic pitch on Sunday. I think it just depends who's fit for the night and who's going to make enough progress over the next couple of days to actually bring back in. But what you're looking at, the majority of the team that played tonight is going to have to go again on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have a look at what Ange says pre-match, and we're lucky that nobody got injured tonight. And I don't think we've mentioned Aieti. I thought Aieti was okay tonight. And I thought he actually put in a decent enough shift. But we're asking this team to go again. We're asking them to go again against a Livingston side that are struggling. We sometimes struggle when we go there as well. But you look at the league games that we've got. We've got Livingston, then Dundee United, Rafe in the Cup, then Aberdeen away. We need to win all 4 of the games. Sunday is massive already to get the 3 points. But we need that. We need this. Ange is always in a state of flux. We need that 11 to go again. We do need that 11 to go again. You're and right. There's nothing to change unless Giakoumakis can make the bench. He's not going to start. There's nothing there. But that 11 starts again on Sunday. And then we might have to look to some of the younger guys to come off the bench when we get to 60, 70 minutes.
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, when I'm mentioning guys like Ncham and Griffiths, it's not because I'm bemoaning the fact that they've left. What I'm saying is Ange Postecoglou was in a situation where he's got 2 experienced players with bags of European experience, and they're not available to us for 2 non-footballing reasons. One, attitude, the other, behaviour and attitude. So these are things that he has inherited to add to all the problems of the 10 injured players or 10 players who were unavailable tonight. The fact that we brought in 12 and we've offloaded 15. So I actually feel for Postecoglou, and I think that's why, a result like tonight, a couple of defeats in the league, getting knocked out the Champions League, there's no real panic at this moment in time, Amy. If this was season 2 or 3 of Postecoglou's tenure and this was happening, then I'd be worried. What's your thoughts on what Kev says there about Livingston? I mean, the games do come in thick and fast. Do you think there will be any changes, or are we kind of hoping that 1 or 2 come back from injury?
Well, you hope Abada will be back, and then you hope obviously Callum McGregor could possibly be back. I don't think it was too serious a knock, so you can be a little bit hopeful there. But, Kev's spot on. Every game's going to be massive now. Livingston was massive even before tonight. No matter what the result, it was irrelevant. The league has to be priority. It will remain priority. So as Kev rightly says, every game from here on in is massive. It's a plastic pitch. It's a tough venue. We're not good travellers to Livingston over the years. We've struggled recently. So it's a massive game on a tricky pitch. So as Kev says, you're asking a lot of the players because probably 8 or 9 of them will need to go again.
I'm looking towards the return game, Kevin, where we bring Real Betis back to Celtic Park. And I know a lot can change between now and December in terms of form and injury, etc. But a lot of the players we've mentioned will be back. A lot of the relationships that we hope to develop will have developed by then. Does tonight's performance fill you with a bit of confidence that, you know what, a tie that we probably didn't think we'd get anything from, home or away, we might just nick a win. We might get something from that game. I mean, you mentioned the Ferencváros double header, right? We'll try and get maximum points from that, and everything else we can get, in many ways could be a bonus. But I'm looking at that tonight thinking, get them back to Celtic Park, get some more of our players back to full fitness, and I have no fear when Betis come back to Glasgow.
I've got no fear either, because obviously this is probably just random hopefulness that I've probably got at this precise moment in time post-game. But they made 8 changes tonight. And you can actually see them, depending on how the group's going, you can see them making maybe 8 changes again coming to Celtic Park, and they might already be finished second in the group or whatever. So you've got to be confident of getting a result at home in Europe. I mean, they are a decent side. They will probably go further in this competition, but we'll go. But you just want to give guys a game, eh? You just want them to be scared to come to Celtic Park again and get a game, because it's been far too easy to get turned over at Celtic Park over the last couple of years. Yes, we've had the Lazio game, we've had great moments in that, but there's too many teams come to Celtic Park and are able to wander back up the London Road with 3 points or winning the tie, and that's got to change.
Amy, we spoke before the game about the magical target of 10. Have you seen anything tonight that gives you more hope that we are capable of getting about 10 points from this group?
We've got to, you've got to have the faith that we can still get 9 points from our home games. That was going to be irrelevant, and tonight it's not really changed my opinion. I just still got to hope. And then, do I think we can maybe scrape a point away at Ferencváros? Or I'm not quite so sure about, or against Bayer Leverkusen, but you never know. Got to remain positive. More players back, we can live in a little bit of hope.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm trying to snipe somebody there and it keeps on moving.
I know, it's a tough gig. It's a tough gig, Kev. But I'll tell you what, it was scintillating stuff. 7 goals, a bit of a thriller. And they even said rip roaring when they were describing it on the commentary that I was watching, Kev. So they've obviously been tuning into ACSOM.
There was somebody in the comments, and Andy Scott Echo came into the comments there, and he says he stays in Spain, and the Spanish press are praising Celtic style of play.
There you go.
I'm happy with that. Let's leave on that positive note.
Let's leave it. It's been a very positive post-match analysis, I've got to say. All that's left for me to say is thanks for everybody for getting involved. All 1,700 of you that tuned in live and commented on the various platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and click the notification button. You'll be entered into monthly prize draws free of charge. Thank you to Kevin Graham. Thank you to Amy Canavan. And we'll see you again tomorrow at 12:30 on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you very much.